Hey everyone, and welcome to Uncanny JMen again. Back with another She-Hulk episode discussion. So this was episode 4, I believe.
Mhm.
Episode 4, where yet again we have some cameos. So if you haven't watched episode 4, go watch it. This is going to be heavy with spoilers because we're talking about everything that happened in that episode. Go watch that. Pause it. Pause this. Watch it, then come right back and we'll just start where talking about everything you want to talk about. So, Josh, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I have to say, it did not go the direction I thought it was going to go.
Okay.
So, the show thus far, the first few episodes, first two and mostly the third episode, it seemed like it was like a situational comedy show. And it didn't seem to have a villain to worry about. It didn't seem to have like an overarching storyline. But then the end of the third episode, you kind of get that feeling like, oh, that's ending. This group of people attacked her, and it's like, oh, who are these people? Who's their boss? Why are they trying to get her blood? What's the situation? We finally had that mystery that looked like it was going to launch kind of the overarching story for the whole season. And then we get to episode 4, and it's like nothing happened. We're right back to the situational comedy. And yeah, it's just it kind of switched back. It's like they really wanted to make sure we understood that she is not a superhero. She is a person
Yeah.
living a person's life who happens to also have superpowers. So it's very interesting that they took the step forward in the storyline, the end of episode 3, and then stepped back to give us more of her general life.
Yeah, I agree. Very interesting. It didn't really feel like main story advanced much. Um, if the only part that may have moved the story forward is like the very last scene, basically, not the the mid credits or after credits. That
Oh
did not
no,
move.
that after credit scene is going to be so important. We have to know what Wong drinks. It's
Yeah.
it's definitely going to come up later.
But right before the credits, with Jen being sued by Titania, I feel like that is kind of continuing one thread of plot. But I agree. This seems more like so. I feel like this is kind of taking the reverse of Miss Marvel. So Miss Marvel was a superhero show that had kind of slice of life style narrative in it. Whereas I feel like this is like slice of life. It's just kind of following Jen and her life and stuff with a bit of superhero in it.
Yeah,
Um, it's interesting because most of the time, I mean, some people will not like that. I'm gonna be honest. Some people are not gonna like that. However, it's actually kind of a very different take than what we see. Usually, what we've been seeing is, I can't wait to be a superhero. Like, I got powers, got to be a superhero, like right away.
yeah,
This is, I mean, there's going to be a lot of situations for a lot of people, and when they get their powers, how they react to it. This is the first time we're seeing someone who's like truly reluctant to become a superhero. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, they a little bit with Spider-Man in the Sonyverse, not so much with MCU. MCU, we start off with him just being a hero. Um, so it is kind of different. It is definitely a different take.
yeah. It certainly is. It's not what you expect from a Marvel show, but it is a different take, and it is kind of fun to see another side of it. Um, Me personally, I like Marvel because I like superheroes. I like seeing the action. I like wondering how they're going to defeat this villain. Uh, so I'd kind of like a little more superhero show in this superhero show. Uh, but it is interesting to watch with a different mindset, and it is an important thing. Is you do have to approach this show with the idea that it is not like all the rest. And they're making darn sure that it is not like all the rest. It is its own thing, and you just have to watch it with the intent to be entertained. Maybe you won't like all the jokes. Maybe you don't. Maybe you prefer a different direction. But the show is choosing to go this direction to give Jen's humor and her vision of life with powers So yeah.
All right. Well, now that we've kind of discussed that element, there's something that I want to talk about. This show, I feel like it keeps on taunting us. Um, it it introduces some elements. Like just like here's a little bit of the Hulk going off into space, little tease, little taunt, a little thing,
Yeah.
and we have like a little bit of this, a little bit. But this episode, that there's two things in particular that made me laugh. But I'm like, did they mean it? I feel like they had to have meant it. One is a character whose name is Donnie Blaze, which is extremely close to Johnny Blaze, which is the
Yeah.
name of the character who's Ghost Rider.
Yeah. I wrote down Johnny Blaze at first, and I'm like, no, wait. No, this is not Johnny Blaze.
So what's interesting, so Donnie Blaze is the magician we see, that's the stage musician is what I'm gonna call it, magician. So it's the stage magician. And he did study at Kamertage and flunked out, I guess. Got kicked
After
out.
a week.
Yeah,
Got kicked
so
out after a week.
he has some magical experience. So at first when I saw him making the teleportation, that circle, I was like, oh, we got another Ned, another person who just naturally can make it. But no, he actually got training. So he is sensitive to the mystic arts. He got some training but didn't really polish it up. So that was interesting that we first got that. But also he made a portal to like what looks like kind of almost like the hell realm or the underworld or the other world, or there's a lot of terms that kind of wrap up into the same kind of place. That is like interesting. Johnny Blaze, and then also sends to that, like creates a portal to the hell-ish realm with goblins and demons, and Johnny Blaze makes a pact with a demon. Also, what was her name? Madison, two D's, one Y, and the Y is not where you think it should be. She talks about making a pact with a demon.
Yeah, Jake from State Farm. I mean, Jake from Demon Dimension.
So there's a lot of things I'm like, it's kind of like Ghost Rider like, but I think that was just a taunt. I don't think that actually means we're getting Ghost. I don't think Donnie Blaze is Ghost Rider, first of all. Certainly
No,
not. I hope
definitely
not.
Yeah.
A brother? Maybe. He maybe be Donnie and Johnny Blaze are brothers and introduce him a little bit. Like, I don't know if they'll do that in this one. But I just thought that was weird. Like that was a taunt.
And I also find it very interesting that in a world where real magicians that can do real magic are known, there's still magicians or illusionists that do the little tricks.
Are there? Because no one cared about him.
That
He's
is true.
doing actual illusion. Like he was doing like what you would see in our world. That was okay tricks, but everyone was super bored until he started doing real magic.
That's the thing, is how are there people trying to do performances like that, trying to give people a taste of essentially superpowers in a world where they can turn on the news and see people with legitimate, real superpowers that you know are not tricks.
Yeah.
Even legitimate magic that you know is not tricks. So it's just very interesting that in that universe, in the MCU universe, magicians, like street level magicians, are still exist and they're still trying to make a living.
Yeah. It kind of shows that the impact to different areas, things you wouldn't think about. Like I'm sure the entertainment sector changes a lot after superheroes are real. And that kind of just shows like some of the impact that you wouldn't really think about happening right there in their real world.
Right.
But one other thing that I want to say is another taunt that is directly related to this. Madison King. So her name is Madison King. She talks about, so she goes to this realm and she was calling them goblins, not demons. There she was calling them goblins, and that she met the Goblin King and made a pact with Jake the demon. So I immediately was like, wait, why did, like, this sounds very familiar. And I was like, Madison King, Madison, Madeline, Madeline Pryor is the Goblin Queen in the comics. And I was like, Madison and Madeline are way too similar, and the why they actually put it in the same spot.
Okay.
And so like I was like, it feels like they're kind of taunting us with another X-Men so it's Jean Grey's clone, Madeline Pryor, instead of Madison King, but she also goes to like a demon realm basically and becomes known as the Goblin Queen. And I'm like, it feels like, I mean, they know Marvel stuff. Like the writers have to know that that's like, or gone through a proof, or someone read the script that knows that this exists too. I think they're just taunting us.
Yeah. Yeah, very well could be. I mean, just the whole story, I feel like, is also poking fun at these other stories. Like, I was trying to listen through the second time because I was like, all right, her story is a little all over the place. Let me get straight what exactly happened. So she went to a fire dimension where she made a deal with a talking goat. Is the talking goat different from the demon? The thing is, at the end credits, which I need to pay more attention to end credits in Marvel because in multiple shows now the end credits have proven to be important. But there is a picture where they have drawn out of a goat in the fire dimension with a contract hanging out of its mouth, a name tag that says, "Hello, my name is Jake," and Madison is signing her name on the contract in the end credits. And I'm like, well, you know, this picture really sums up the story and explains it so much better. Yeah, it was a demon goat named Jake, I guess. It's the fact that that is what had happened in that demon dimension was interesting. It also is interesting. I was trying to watch the portals as they opened to try and see, okay, is he sending everyone to the same place? Is it different locations? And we do know that one, his second volunteer, the one that did not want to go through the portal, mentions that her friend got stranded in a parking garage in some other place. But other than that story, so Madison, the portal that opens, you don't see demons. You don't see what looks like a demon dimension. You see what looks like kind of the Oregon Trail, but on fire.
Yeah.
You see like thatched roof carriages and stuff, or not thatched roof carriages.
Heads on spikes and
Yeah. And so like you see things that look similar to bits of Earth history, but darker and on fire and more deadly. So I just thought it was interesting. And then but she said that she got sent to this fire dimension with demons. I was like, okay, so is that I don't know, is that like some other dimension that is similar to Earth but with demons? It's interesting. I want to know more about the dimensions he's opening up and how that's working. And it's hard for me to think about anything else from this episode because of it.
I don't think we're going to get the answers in this show.
Oh no, probably not. At this point, they keep opening up so many storylines and then completely abandoning them. I'm beginning to just expect we're not going to get any answers to like any of these in this show. Like maybe they're just opening up a whole bunch of questions and then seeing what they want to answer in some later show, or if they're just leaving a whole bunch of cliffhangers. That's part of the joke. I don't know. I guess we'll find out in another 5 episodes.
Yeah, who knows how this is going to end? I have no idea where they're going with it still.
Yeah.
And we're basically halfway through the season.
Yeah. Really no closer to knowing than we were the end of the last episode.
Yeah. So one thing I have to point out is that the true hero of this series is Jen's dad. I just the dad mentality of he's got to protect her still, even though she's a superhero. So he shows up to security proof her house, and she's like, "I'm a Hulk. I'm fine."
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit more of like Kamala's dad. That's like just a very much like a dad. Just I'm a dad to a superhero kind of thing, where it's just very dad things that he does.
It's funny because they're both significant in the lives of their daughters in two shows back to back. But boy, were those characters different too.
Yeah.
Like Kamala's dad he's a goof. He's just a goofball, and you love him for that. And this dad, he is the more serious, protective father, and sometimes a little too much. The shovel's for digging holes. That's enough said. It's like this guy is taking this very seriously. But yeah, so it is interesting that back-to-back shows have that kind of father figure playing a semi-prominent role.
Also, the man says, like, basically hints that he'd bury bodies for her, but then is upset she doesn't talk to the police. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, I just thought that was just a way to bring her family back into it, and everything is a good scene.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what appears to be a bulk of the episode, and it's Jen's dating life.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of me wonders if that guy's going to come back and be significant in some way later on. This show has gone completely out of its way to show us that 99% of guys are jerks, are not to be trusted. They womanize. Like, all men are like that, with a rare exception. For the record, not true, but the show, I feel like, has been going out of its way to make almost every male character in the show someone you can't trust. I
would disagree, but continue.
Okay. I mean, there are exceptions. There's Pug, there's Bruce Banner, but like, she's constantly interacting with these guys, and these guys are coming up and being like over the top sleazeball. But then this guy comes out and he's over the top other direction. Like, oh, I'm a doctor who works with kids, and tell me about your date, and how did that make you feel? And like, it's like he read a manual about all the things that women want to hear, and is just going down a list. And she's immediately onto that and brings him home. And he sits and reads like a feminist novel, waiting for her to return from a demon fight. I guess I just question it. Like, was he trying to get something there? And like, he get her blood while she was asleep.
I was thinking that he might have been part of the wrecking crew that was trying to get her blood earlier. Mm-hmm. But the only thing about that was that he left as soon as she wasn't She-Hulk anymore. But she falls. We did establish earlier that when she falls asleep, she reverts.
Exactly. So he could have gotten the blood while she was sleeping,
and he was done either way. He was leaving.
Exactly. He had no reason to stay, and every reason to get out before she caught on that something had happened.
I definitely thought he was sketchy. I will say, though, from my friends that are on dating apps, this was a lot more accurate than should be the case. I did think it was funny, the nerd date basically being the physical embodiment of Reddit, where he's just like, well, what if this? Or like, what if you tested this? Or you've done this? And she's like, I don't want to die, so why would I test these things? Like, well, what about, like, I think he even mentioned like flight or something, or telekinesis, or like something that was like super speed. That's what I was like, well, I mean, she is super strong, so she could propel fast, but like, that's different than super speed, kind of. But he was very much just Reddit.
Yeah. Yeah. What happens if? Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely awkward. And actually, I had to rewatch one scene immediately. I actually rewound it because, like, skipped backwards. You don't rewind digital media anymore. But the check scene where they're both like, she thought he was reaching to pay, and it made it look like they're both reaching to pay, but then he was just grabbing his keys and leaving. Mm-hmm. I had to rewatch, and I should have just waited a second, but because I didn't notice that it was about the check, and I thought that thought he was pulling out like a weapon or something.
That's what I thought too.
And so I rewound it, and I realized that the check was the only thing in sharp focus. Everything else was blurred, and that's why we were supposed to focus on it, but I still didn't, because it was a black checkbook in the
Yeah.
middle of blurred screen. I don't think that played very well, like easily, until afterwards. I was like, oh, that's what they're referring
Yeah.
to. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but
Yeah, I agree. The first time I watched it, so I watched it twice, and the first time, yeah, I was like, is he going for a gun? Like, what is this? And should you be reaching for something, or should you just be preparing to change into the, or to like to
Hulk
change
out.
into Hulk, or yeah. So the second time watching through, that scene was definitely a little funnier, knowing that it was about the checkbook. But yeah, I feel like the joke was lost a little bit the first time through. If you don't realize it's the checkbook, and it's hard to make a checkbook stand out on a
Yeah,
table.
well, all they'd have to do is have a waiter or waitress place the check down, and then that leads directly into that scene, not have it already on the table.
They did actually, but they were mid conversation when the waiter came and placed it down. So they're talking. The waiter comes down, places it down, and then just leaves. And then they look at the checkbook, and then think that scene starts. So the waiter didn't just put it down. I think the waiter should have said something about like,
Yeah,
and here's the check whenever you're ready, and then go into that scene.
because they immediately cut and changed perspective that I didn't get it.
Yeah.
But that's fine. It's not an important scene. So
Okay.
it wasn't that he was a bad guy or anything like that. So it really was just for the joke.
I mean, not a bad guy is in not a villain.
Not a villain.
Yeah.
Probably not the best guy.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
At first, also, I thought that she saw something on his phone because the phone was there, but it was blurred out still. So that's why I focused on the phone because it was a light, not the checkbook.
Yeah.
So it didn't hit that part didn't hit for me. But still it worked in retrospect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so she meets this seemingly perfect guy. Well, actually, first, before I talk about that, she stopped getting matches. And that was the most unexpected or like unrealistic thing from, again, talking to my friends that are in the dating scene right now, in their 30s in the dating scene. They're like, no, you will always get a match all the time. Women don't just stop getting matches. You might be more picky about who you're trying to match with, but there would never just be a moment where there's like no possible matches happening. And then the fact that her as a Hulk, I do think that makes sense. She would get a lot of matches because there's obviously all these people that were just either just match with everyone and then go on a date and get free drinks out of it, or whatever. And then the guy who may be too good to be true, and then didn't like her once she was turned back into Jen. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about that lifestyle, so yeah.
Single, the single lifestyle.
Yeah, it's been a little while for me. Yeah.
So the only other thing I want to talk about it more is we hear more about Titania.
Okay.
So Jen gets served at her house, and Titania is suing her for trademark infringement by using the name She-Hulk.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to think back. She never said She-Hulk on anything I saw.
So
Did she?
there's two times that come to my mind. So yeah, when I first watched that, I was like, I don't think there's a case there because other people are calling her She-Hulk, and she can't be held liable for the actions of other people towards her. The two situations I can think of, one was in that interview, which I'm assuming they're going to look back to that interview, and she says some other guy after thinking about it for half a second, and I believe she ends with, "So I guess I'm She-Hulk now," or something like that. So like she kind of affirms that, yeah, so this is my name now. And the other one, which I don't know how Titania would know this, but she has now established a dating profile listing her name as
Mm,
She-Hulk, and that is like self-identification as the name She-Hulk. So there are some areas I still don't know that there's a case against Jennifer Walters for the use of the name She-Hulk, but I at least see some areas where they might be arguing it. I also was like, well, if she copyrighted the name She-Hulk after people were calling Jennifer Walters She-Hulk, there's definitely no case there. And that was my assumption at first. But then I actually paused on what was being served, and it says Mary McPherson holds the copyright to She-Hulk by Titania, a company.
hmm.
So I'm guessing maybe Mary McPherson is Titania's real name, and she copyrighted the name for a business, and she probably was like, she is very strong.
True.
So she probably was like, oh, I'm strong. The Hulk is strong. So I'm like the female version of the Hulk. I'm the most Hulk like person out there, and that's female. So yeah, She Hulk by Titania has a nice ring to it. So she could
Mm,
have copyright written it ahead of time. And even if that company didn't go anywhere, still hold that copyright. She would have to show that there is risk of confusion between the two. And since she does not go by the name of She Hulk herself, I don't feel like there's a case to. Now, I am not a lawyer. I took law classes in college and I loved it. So I love law. So don't take anything I'm saying as legal advice or legal counsel or like or like words from a lawyer or anyone who has practiced law or even read about law or not well read about law, but I haven't taken a law class in 14 years now or so. So, but I don't believe that there's a reasonable case that there can be confusion between She-Hulk the company and She-Hulk the person. And since Titania does not go by the name She-Hulk, I don't think there's a case there. But it is interesting that Titania is choosing to go after Jennifer Walters at this point.
yeah. Um, if she had a company called She-Hulk prior to the interview, that I could see something there, but also if She-Hulk isn't monetarily gaining from the use of the name and not defaming the name, it probably wouldn't be a problem also. Because I believe like you can talk about any company you want. Like I'm not going to now only because I don't actually know YouTube rules about putting stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I imagine we've said Marvel plenty of times. There are people whose names are Marvel. Like people have been named that.
Yeah.
Marvel doesn't sue those people for using the name Marvel.
And if someone decides to go by the nickname of Marvel, I also don't think they can sue them for that. I don't think there's a case there.
If they put their name as Marvel using the font or styling of Marvel, then yes. If they have a brand that they create out of their name, that infringes on the brand of Marvel. But again, we're not lawyers, so although to be honest, I
Yeah.
don't know if the show consulted any lawyers in their stuff either. So
Yeah.
we might not get real legal precedent or
Yeah.
discussion out of this show on that either.
Yeah. I was watching it with my wife and I just kept being like, yep, that's not how it works. Nope, that's not how it works. That's contempt of court right there. Yeah.
I mean,
Very little law in the law parts of the show.
I'm pretty sure a drunk witness would not be allowed.
Yeah, no.
So
Nor
her
would
testimony would be,
off the opposing counsel. Yeah. There's a lot wrong with that.
yeah.
All right. So, and in the topic of, so you said about the drunk witness. So I'm going to use that as a segue to talk a little about Wong's case. And first off, I do want to say I thought it was interesting what Wong was asking for. He said he wanted to ensure that no unlicensed person can practice the mystic arts again. I wrote this really quickly, kind of hard to read my own writing. So does Wong and Doctor Strange have a wizard's license?
Let's say, well, we know which side of the Civil War he'd be on.
Oh, that's a good point.
So
That's
we
a good
now
point.
know that
Requiring
he is
license.
fully in the support of the Sokovia Accords.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it
Definitively.
that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, his phrasing there that you have to be licensed. But from what we've seen in Doctor Strange and in any of the movies talking about the wizards, there doesn't appear to be a license to
Hmm.
practice. And Wong even talks about when the guy gets there, nothing's in writing. They pledge to the mystic arts. They pledge to be a servant to the mystic arts, but nothing's in writing, nothing at all. So I don't think there is a license. But it's just kind of funny to think of, like, oh, okay, Doctor Strange, now that you're with us, let's make your license, your wizarding license. Like, where would you show your wizarding license?
Also, he showed up in court again, and I'm pretty sure there's a warrant out for his arrest for breaking Emil Blonsky out. I feel like he would have been just arrested on the spot there, but they're just going to ignore that fact from now on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a warrant out for his arrest, but there should be, because he
Right.
did admit to breaking a criminal out of prison
Out of
against
like a super max prison.
Yeah, yeah. So there should be, but once again, I think they're letting the humor kind of take the lead here.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I thought was interesting in the court case was that the judge says, "I'd be hard pressed to believe that a magic trick could constitute gross negligence." She is saying this to a wizard who has used magic to save the world and put the world at risk in different ways multiple times. I just find it really interesting that in a world where wizards are known and real magic exists all over the place, that she would find it hard to believe that a magic trick could constitute gross negligence.
I mean,
portals to demon dimensions were already talked about.
Granted, memory wipes, but all of the Spider-Man No Way Home was gross negligence of magic, the entire thing.
Yes.
So yeah, it's the whole legal stuff in the show is a farce, to be quite honest. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
Fully agree that, like, I mean, really all they have to ask for is that he can still practice his illusory magic. He just can't use real magic on a stage show for entertainment value without some permit or something. Not just all magic. He can still practice magic and he can still practice his illusions, but without, I mean, I guess it is a license, but it'd be more of like a entertainment permit or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It would be interesting to reference if Wong did reference the Sokovia Accords in the case. I feel like that would be a good route to go. I feel like they're probably done with his case now.
We'll see. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, they accepted the cease and desist.
No, that's true.
Like, they didn't accept the stay of use until the court hearing. They accepted the cease and desist. So I don't know. I got the impression that they were done there. Maybe not. Anyway,
we're running short on time, so we've got to give our final impressions. So what did you think of this episode as a whole?
I thought I had the show figured out last episode, and then it turned back the clock a little bit. It's fun. It's I watch the Marvel shows to see superheroes and stuff. So this isn't my top pick for the Marvel shows because this just isn't what I'm looking for in a TV show normally. I don't tend to watch a lot of situational comedy type of shows, and that's what this is. And I love that Marvel is branching out into all these different types of shows. There's definitely parts of this that I am laughing out loud, and that's not something I normally do in a Marvel show, so I appreciate that. But it really is all over the place. I'm still kind of waiting for them to get to the point. So it's kind of hard for me to say this is a great episode or this is a terrible episode or anywhere in between, because I'm used to fitting episodes into the puzzle that is Marvel. And watching these things unfold and knowing that this is now canon is it just feels really weird that this is part of the MCU along with all these other movies and all these other TV shows. So it's really weird for me, and I haven't gotten used to that yet. It's not bad. The humor, there's a lot of funny parts in the show. I'm just not used to this type of Marvel show yet. What do you think? What do you think of the episode?
Yeah, I don't like it as much as episode 3. I really liked episode 3. The way I'm kind of viewing this, and actually Marvel, the MCU as a whole right now, is growing up, I read a lot of comics, and I read even more comics now that I mean, it's digital now. I don't have to go out and buy a $4 comic. I can just pay $15 a month and have unlimited like access to 30,000 Marvel comics, like whatever it may be.
Great
So,
time to be alive.
the not every comic is my cup of tea. Sometimes an entire character is not my cup of tea. Sometimes I like the character, but then one writer I don't like the way they handle the character, or one story arc I don't like, or a crossover I don't like how they represent a certain character. But they try to make a whole lot of stuff for a whole lot of people. This show, much like a lot of the MCU, they're doing a lot of different styles for different audiences. The thing is that we've been brought into this mentality for MCU that if you like the MCU, you have to watch every single thing in it because something's going to matter.
Yeah.
What I'll remind people is that technically they write everything so that you don't have to have watched anything before it for the most part. If it's a part 1, part 2 kind of situation, that's different. But like, you can technically pick out any singular movie besides Endgame, I would say, and just start from there, and they explain enough of it in that movie that you don't have to have seen everything else. So if something's not your cup of tea, you don't have to watch it. Like, you don't. So that's the way I'm kind of viewing this, is right now, not my favorite. But it's going to be someone's favorite. And so I'm glad that they have something for those people that I have so much else. But right now it's probably my lowest rated Disney Plus show, but we'll see as it continues.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase it. Yeah, this is content for some people, and they're gonna love it. And so we're glad it's out there.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? I mean, you'll leave your comments below if you agree with us about how this show is going so far, or what if is this your favorite episode, like your favorite show so far? Let us know in the comments below. Happy to discuss it further with you as well there. But we'll be back again next week after the next episode airs to discuss maybe if we have more plot or not. Well, thank you for watching.